Hey, Foxy listeners, thanks for tuning in to episode 158. Just before we get started in this episode, a quick reminder that my masterclass is coming up on June 22nd and is filling up fast. So don't forget to look for the link on all of my social media and in the show notes for this to sign up. Now, this is for you if you are charging an hourly rate for your services. I'm going to tell you my story of how I changed just a little bit in the way I thought of my work and my value, was able to actually charge more by working less, be able to take time off whenever I wanted, and not be tied to a clock anymore, all while making more profit. So you are going to want to join me for that. There's going to be a link in the show notes as well as on the blog. You can also find it on my social media, and it'll give you all of the full details of exactly what to expect. So I hope to see you there. There is limited seats, so grab your ticket as soon as you can. Now let's talk about today's episode. I sit with my friend Liam, and we're going to talk to you about how setting goals may be holding you back from the life you didn't even maybe know you wanted to live, how using your brain properly can be very freeing, and how you can let go of fear and how fear holds us back. So without further ado, I'm Tanya Fox, and you're listening to Fox Talks Business Podcast. I started my career in the corporate world, but always played to my own tune and loved to think outside of the box. This didn't always serve me well with the bosses, so I made the decision to become an entrepreneur. And that little seed of entrepreneurial curiosity continued to grow as I branched out into retail, service, and franchise businesses. Now, I have been fortunate to have amazing successes in the last 2 decades, but they did not come without some really big failures and even bigger lessons learned. And that's why I started this podcast, not just to share the failures, but to show you how you can turn every failure into a success. We're going to hear from some amazing humans from around the world that are going to share their stories of the good, the bad, and the motivational entrepreneurial life has to offer. After all, life is too short to make all of the mistakes yourself, so why not learn from each other? And of course, we're going to have some fun, because as I always say, well, you know what? I'll tell you that at the end of the episode. Well, welcome to the show, Foxy listeners. I am really excited for today's guest, who is a speaker, a teacher, a writer, and a researcher. We're going to dive right in because I think there is so much to explore here. Liam, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
So I know your background because I've read your bio, but give us a little bit of history of who you are and how you got here.
Well, as you said, I'm a speaker, teacher, writer, researcher, and really pretty much in the area of how can we get more out of life and how can we solve our problems most effectively and live as being the best person that we can be. And I do a lot of work in the relationship and marriage area. And also more recently, it's sort of broadened out into really life in general. How, why do we have the life we have? And is there a reason the way our life is the way it is? And how can we change it if we're not too happy with things in it? So my background really has been a success seeker and student of success pretty well all my life. And I've studied everything from religion to spirituality to personal development, self-help, lots of different disciplines there. I've had my own businesses. I've had, a last count, I think I've 18 businesses I've had throughout my life. And I'm not 150 in case you were wondering. So really but what I'm motivated by, or what particularly has interested me latterly in my coaching and in my research has been the whole area, or it came from my own experience where I'd spent a lifetime as an entrepreneur, really, with all these businesses. But like most typical entrepreneurs and most people, my life was full of stress and problems. And it seemed like the more successful I was, the more problems I had, more, things came out of left field to deal with. And although I was having a good lifestyle and enjoying things to a certain degree, I never really felt in control of my life. And as I say, it was just the entrepreneur's curse, they call it, problems. So I thought, well, maybe this is the way life is supposed to be. But then something happened, and in my mid-40s, I actually lost everything I had, and I became homeless. I had to move back in with my elderly mother, and I spent a few months sleeping on the sofa in her small apartment. And she even had to pay for my food. That's how, I just had nothing other than the clothes on my back. And and worst of all, having been someone who thought, I know all the ways to be successful. I know how to set goals and achieve and do all these things. And I know all the strategies on using your mind and positive thinking and, NLP and all these different approaches. So why has this happened to me? Why have I ended up not just homeless and penniless, but really with no prospects? Because I had a few businesses, they all went, all my property, that all went, and I had no clue what to do. I didn't know how to get out of the mess, and I had, couldn't see any opportunities at all. But what I did when I rebuilt my life is I somehow rebuilt it back in a much better way. So I started to develop new business ideas, but the opportunities came to me. I didn't have to fight and struggle to succeed with them. I was able to make money without being stressful and doing what I enjoyed and creating a lifestyle doing things that I really enjoyed as well. And what I noticed was the big difference was I wasn't stressed. Things weren't hard. I mean, I put in a lot of effort, but it wasn't a struggle. And there weren't times when I was struggling at all. Most of the time, things were flowing along. So my coaching now is really the result of understanding what had happened to me and what I was doing differently, that I could actually make life a lot more pleasant and enjoyable and successful in a much deeper way. And also through coaching other people, showing them how they can get the same results by really doing things in quite a different way. And I guess that's what we're going to talk about today in the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think, this is a thing that I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, not only in their business life, but in professional life too, right? Like you get, especially if you're working at home and your spouse is in, a typical corporate job or whatever, sort of trying to deal with that dynamic, but also feeling all of the stress, like constantly feeling like you had said, the more successful I am, it just feels like the more the struggle is there. And is this what I really signed up for? So let's talk a little bit about, you have a saying that problems are nothing more than a symptom of using your brain the wrong way. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Sure. Well, when I took everything back to bare bones to try and figure out what had happened to me, I really wanted to get to the core of how do we really get results in our life? Because I've tried all these different things, but if anyone's tried goal setting, a lot of the time you don't achieve your goals. It doesn't matter how many workshops and seminars you go to on goal setting or how you do it, you simply don't get there. Or you set goals, and when you achieve them, you don't really enjoy them that much. And you
just
think,
move on to the next one.
Yeah, I need to set more goals, that I can't ever be truly happy. Or you have all sorts of problems in achieving your goals. But and I think there's been statistics done on how many people achieve their goals. Well, it's such a small percentage. You have to ask yourself, is it really an approach that works? And what I found was that it's not. So I wanted to find what really works. Not just, this works sometimes, prayer works sometimes, goal setting works sometimes, working hard works sometimes. What really works? How do we really create our life? And when I started to dig into this, I asked myself a very basic question, which is, why are we here? What is our purpose? And it's a big question, and lots of people have, philosophically tried to answer it. But we can all, and we don't, so we might disagree on those things, but we can agree on one thing, is that we are physical, biological beings. So I thought, if we're physical beings and we live in a physical world, we're a living species, there must be something biological about how we function that makes us human beings. There must be some process or system that keeps us as human beings. And there must be some purpose for being here biologically. And it turns out there is. And any biologist will tell you that the purpose of you being here is to be the best that you can be. Because when you're the best that you can be, you have the greatest chance to fulfill your biological purpose, which is to continue with the survival of the species. So that makes sense. And it was music to my ears to think, well, my purpose for being here is to be the best that I can be. It's not just a good idea or something I've always wanted. It's my purpose to be here, because when I'm at my strongest, healthiest, most resourceful, most creative, that's when I'm contributing the most, not only to my own survival, but able to help the species, the human species, like every other species on the planet, survive and thrive and carry on. So the next thing I thought was, well, if we're designed to be the best that we can be, if that nature has shown us biologically that's what we're here for, has nature provided us with anything to help us to do that? And it would make sense that it had. You know, it wouldn't say your purpose is to do this, but we haven't got any tools.
Right, you're on your own.
You don't have the ability to do it. You know, we've been designed to fulfill that purpose. And the thing we've been given to make us the best we can be is our brain. This is a mechanical, biological machine, our brain. And the biggest problem in our life is no one's ever taught us how to use it. You know, if you want to drive a car, you learn how to use it. If you want to use a computer properly, you learn how to use it. Any machine, we're taught how to use it. And we know that if we use the machine the right way, it's going to work. And if we don't use it the right way, if we don't know how to use it, we're going to create problems. We're going to have problems. You know, the car's going to break down, or if you put the wrong fuel in it, or if you hit the wrong buttons at the wrong time, you're going to damage the car, and you're going to create unnecessary problems for yourself. And you're not going to have a very pleasant time. All you're going to be doing is trying to fix these problems, when if you knew how to drive that car in the first place or operate the computer, you wouldn't have those problems. And it would do the job it was designed to do. It would take you to where you wanted to go. And whenever you had a problem with it, you go, oh, I'm doing it wrong. So it turns out, and it sounds a bit silly in one way, I guess, but it turns out the human brain is exactly the same. The human brain is a machine. You know, it's the most infinitely powerful machine ever created, that ever exists. And there have been scientists and research done, endless scientific research about the brain, and we're still trying to understand. And we still can't get over the fact of how enormously powerful it is. It's trillions of times more powerful than the most powerful computers on the planet. And it's all contained inside our head. So once we understand that this machine is designed to make us the best that we can be, all we need to do is to figure out how to use it. And when you figure out how to use it, you realize that if you have a problem in your life, it's like any machine. It's been created because you're using your brain the wrong way, because you're not designed to have problems. And again, this was a massive idea that I thought, well, everyone's going to hate me for saying that. You're not designed to have problems. But you really don't, because when you think about it, there's no benefit in a problem. It makes you stressed. It makes you unhappy. It takes away your creativity. It makes you physically less healthy. What benefit is there in a problem? And sometimes people say, well, you grow and you learn and all that.
You learn, yeah.
But every entrepreneur will know, if you really analyze that, there are better ways to learn. You know, you don't have to learn through struggle, stress, and problems. Because if that was the case, then your whole life would be continual stress and problems and no fun at all. There are better ways to learn. And like any, as I say, the whole machine analogy, which is what your brain is, it's saying to you, well, you don't have to learn the hard way. You know, why would you want to learn the hard way? You want to get as far as you can get. You want to be the best you can be. You don't want to be struggling and trying to figure things out and you know, overcoming obstacles to learn lessons that you could have learned in a much better way, a much more productive and enjoyable way. So when you realize that, you make it your mission, which is what I'm trying to help people with, is you make it your mission to understand how your brain works, and you make it your mission to use it the right way. And then everything else in your life actually falls into place. And that's what happened to me. My previous entrepreneurial life, stress, struggles, setting goals, wanting more, overcoming obstacles, the roller coaster of, you know, problems and never feeling really happy. The difference between that and now, or after the, you know, when I lost everything and then rebuilt my life, where good things happen, things are flowing, the right things happen. I don't need to get stressed and worried about things. It's all because I figured out what I did through that experience is I learned how to use my brain in a different way, in a more natural way, the way we've never been taught. Well, actually, sorry to go on a bit, but
No.
we have actually been taught it, but we haven't recognized that we've been taught it, because the Bible tells us exactly how to use our brain. The Bible is the ultimate success manual for how to use your brain, but nobody's really realized, or seen it in quite that way, and therefore they've missed it.
Right. And that was going to be one of my questions, because I think there's probably a lot of people that, that's going to hit home with, because it's true. I think everybody who's out there knows how, diverse and complicated the human brain is and how much it does. But it's true. We just sort of take it for granted that it's just going to go on its way. And we don't take the time to sit and really go, okay, let me figure out how this is. Well, I should say, not all of us who are not studying the brain don't sit there and go, well, let me figure out how to use this machine properly. So is there a tip that you can give? And I know this is a very large topic, but is there something, because I think a lot of people might go, but how do I learn how to use it? Because there is no manual that I can look at for this. So what is one thing that people can start doing to start thinking differently about their own brain?
Okay, well, of course, there is a manual that exists. I've created one, but and I have a coaching program, and I have a process which I call neurostate rebalancing, which, when you use it, gets your brain machine working the right way. But here's a tip, and I think you're right, people do want a tip, but here's an interesting point. When you want a tip, you're using your brain the wrong way. Okay. Isn't that interesting? Because the part of your brain that wants a tip is the part that just needs a little bit of an idea, or a bit more information, a clever way to do this. Maybe this will help me. That's a good idea. That's using your brain, funnily enough, the wrong way, because how you create your life is not, and this is a big topic, but you don't create your life through your thoughts. I know that's controversial, but if you really think about it, how much time do you spend thinking consciously about how your life is going? You don't think about all your breathing, you're not consciously aware all the time of your situation and what you're doing. Most of the time we're on autopilot. And virtually all of the things that show up in our life that are important, whether it be the person we end up marrying, or even business opportunities, or other people we meet, or other circumstances we find ourselves in, they're never the result of sitting down and consciously thinking them into existence. So there is actually something else going on. And this is probably the big takeaway here in terms of a tip, is to realize your thoughts and your thinking brain is just one part of your brain, but that's not the part that really can create the life that you want. In other words, you can't force your life through your thoughts to work out the way you think. You can't figure out how you can be happy with your thoughts. And I know that sounds a bit counterintuitive, because you think, well, you've got to sit down and figure out what you want, decide what you want. But the funny thing is that, again, it's the whole goal setting thing. We don't know what we really want to be happy. We can have an idea. We can say, well, if I earn $1 million a year, I'll be happy. Or if I marry this particular person, I'll be happy. Or if I drive this car, or have this sort of business, I'll be happy. But we don't really know if that will make us happy. And so many times we think it will, we achieve it, and we're not happy. We're still not happy.
Right.
And as we said earlier, you go on to the next thing. So the important thing to realize, it's not your thoughts or your thinking brain that is giving you the results that you want in your life. So to get the real results that you want, you need to tap into and allow to take over, to control, to direct the part of your brain that is giving you the results. And this is an interesting idea. I call it the creative part of your brain. There's actually 4 parts of your brain. They're all physically located in different places, because although the brain is incredibly complicated, as you said, infinitely complicated, it's like a car or a computer. You don't need to know how every little circuit and everything is a bit of software in the computer is working to be able to use it. You just need to know a few things. You need to know the basic principles of the mechanics of how it works. And it's the same with your brain. And you only need to realize that there are 4 parts to your brain, and most people are trying to figure out their life using their thinking part of their brain. And the reason they're doing that is because they have this this thing that's happening in their life that is the number one enemy to get rid of, and that's fear. And coming back to the Bible says more than 360 times, be not afraid. Do not be afraid. Jesus said on the one of his sermons, he said, be not afraid of tomorrow. Do not be anxious about tomorrow. Do not worry about tomorrow, which is interesting when you think he's not saying now sit down and write your goals. He says, don't think about tomorrow.
Don't think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And
live
the
every
reason
day,
for that,
those kind of statements that we don't hear a lot anymore.
Yeah. So the reason why you've got to get rid of fear, and this is really at the basis of what I teach, is what physically happens in your brain when you feel fear, which is also worry, anxiety, stress. When you feel that, your brain does something different to what it should be doing. It snaps you into a state, it activates something called your sympathetic nervous system, and it snaps you into a state which is often called fight, flight, or freeze. It's our survival state, okay? Now, that's a really powerful function of the brain, and it's designed for one specific purpose. In other words, fear is designed for one thing, and that is if there's a lion running at you out of the bushes, or if there's a car coming towards you, and you have to snap into a mental state where you react. You don't think, you run away, you shout for help, you fight back, whatever it is. We all know what this feeling is. You just react without thinking. So when you feel fear, your brain activates the sympathetic nervous system, and it looks around and says, what's the immediate danger that I'm supposed to fight it off, and as soon as possible, get you back to your state of creativity. Because what happens when you activate your sympathetic nervous system, believe it or not, is you cannot solve problems in that state. You cannot see the big picture. It shuts down all of the parts of your brain that include creativity, awareness, intuition, and the ability to see the big picture. And what happens instead is it makes you into it makes your brain focus very narrowly on problems and stress and what's your immediate danger and how can you fix that immediate problem? What can you do to react? But you can't use creativity. You can't use intuition. As I say, you can't see the big picture. And it's all because your brain in a fear state switches all that off, because your brain is thinking you've got an immediate danger you have to get rid of. You can't think about it. If a lion's running at you through the jungle, you don't want your brain to go, now let's evaluate the situation here and come up with a strategic plan on what to do. And oh, by the way, have you noticed the beautiful flowers that are over here just on the side? And oh, I'm so lucky and grateful to be alive. Your brain switches all that stuff off, because if it allowed any of that to be operating in your life, you'd be dead.
Yeah, you'd be eaten, right? Yeah. And you want that immediate reaction. Yeah.
That's where it's perfect. But the problem is most people are using their brain the wrong way, and they're activating that part of their brain through that's creating fear and anxiety. And then they're trying to solve their problems using that part of their brain. And that's when they're fighting, pushing, getting stressed, trying to overcome it, trying to learn more and get more information, trying to work it all out, figure it all out. It's not how you ever solve a problem. Many people, I'm sure, have had the experience where suddenly an idea comes to you you've been thinking about a problem, and then you stop thinking about it, and you wake up at 5 a.m, you go, oh, I'll do it this way. That's a better way to do it. And there's another really good example which shows why this is true. It's because we're very good at knowing what somebody else should do to fix their problem. If you've got a friend who's having rough times in their marriage, and they're saying, oh, my husband or wife, they're being really awful and blah, blah. You know what they should do? You tell them, leave the guy, go find someone else. What's your problem? And they say to you, oh, no, we go to counseling and we can work it out. And that if that was a good marriage, you would say to them, well, actually, you two are good together, and work on it. You'll get it sorted. Don't worry. But if you know that they're not right for each other, you're going to say, it's the wrong place for you to be right now. Now you can see that, but they can't. And why can't they? It's not that they don't want to. They can't literally see the solution to their problem because their brain's not allowing them to do that, because they're in a state of fear, anxiety, and worry. So when you realize all of this, you know the only name of the game is to say, how can I get rid of my fear and anxiety? Because it's blocking my brain from creating the perfect life for me. Because that part of your brain is called the creative part of your brain. That's what drives your life. That's what creates synchronicities. You know, artists, musicians, creators, and even athletes, they talk about this state being in the flow or in the zone. You know, spiritual people talk about being enlightened. And it's that state where, yes, you're putting an effort, but there's something else that's working as well. It's not all of your hard struggle. It's effort, but it's not struggle. And that's you being in the creative state. That is your natural state. That's you being your best you can be. And science has a word for that state, and it's called homeostasis. And homeostasis is when any organism is functioning perfectly. So it's not just humans, but it's, you know, all of the physical processes in the body, the breathing, the digestion, the waste elimination, all your organs are working perfectly, your body's being the best, and your mind's being its best as well. It's being its most creative, resourceful, optimistic, motivated. You know, you want to get motivated to do the right things, you've got to be in that state. It's not about willpower and forcing yourself and struggling and saying, well, when I get there, then I'll be happy and I have to work on it. And I think as an entrepreneur, the biggest problem we have is often in our desire to be more, to be better, to, you know, get more out of life. We make bad decisions. We make wrong decisions and we say, all right, it doesn't feel right. Well, I'm going to make it work. You know, it'll work. I'm determined.
Yeah, this is a good opportunity. Yeah, I should take this. And
yeah, and often what we're saying when we say this is a good opportunity, I should take it. What we're really saying is, I'd better take it because another one might not come along. So I better grab this. It doesn't feel quite right, but, you know, yes, I can make it work. And all of that's based on fear. And that's when you make bad decisions. And I used to make lots of terrible decisions, you know, personally and in my business. And I'd go, I spent so much of my time trying to fix problems that I should never have created in the first place. You know,
yeah,
I shouldn't have opened that branch of the business. I shouldn't have employed that person. I shouldn't have married that person or got into a relationship with them. You know, I shouldn't have done that business deal. I shouldn't have bought that product to try and sell it. All of these things. And then you spend all this time when you'd be much better off if you just done the right thing and that really worked and make it work better, rather than worrying about, you know, you've got to grab everything as it comes along.
Well, and I think entrepreneurs, like I like that you said that, because I think it's so true that we get stuck in a state of, like you said, of fear and of just trying to problem solve everything and forgetting how to get, you know, because oftentimes I find even in clients that I deal with, when they say, you know, I don't feel passionate about my work anymore, I don't love it anymore, I usually find it's because they've lost the creativity part of it. And yeah. I know even for myself, when I'm helping other people come up with ideas, that's when my best ideas come up. If I, like you said, if I just sit down and go, okay, I need to come up with some good ideas, like some new ideas for myself, it's so difficult. So I usually will seek out someone else and try to help them. And then all of a sudden, like you said, it's almost like it's that autopilot of me that just goes, oh, here's some for you too, while you're at it. And then I'm like, oh, this is great. Like, I like helping you because it actually helps me, but I never connected it to that autopilot part of me that I'm letting go. I'm not thinking about the problem. Like you said, when you don't think about it, all of a sudden, you know, it comes to you. And then you're, you know, it's that morning that you wake up and you're like, oh, that's the answer.
That's right. That creative part of you, I call it the creative part of the brain. You know, it has a physical location in your head. It's not just some spiritual airy-fairy idea. There's a part, and it's only relatively recently been discovered, because before that, everybody thought, or it was the commonly held belief was, you know, it was your thoughts that are important, that create your life, and you know, you've got to think everything through.
Think positive thoughts, and
yeah, think positive, do affirmations, write down your goals, you know, read it every day, do some subconscious subliminal take. You know, to try and change your beliefs and all of that sort of thing. And relatively recently, as I say, they've discovered there's actually a part that none of that is true. That's because all of that is very limiting. Because what you can think of is only limited to your experience. So you can think well, I need to make $1 million for me to be happy. Well, the reason you think that is because you've brought in some information at some time in your head where you've seen someone who earns $1 million a year and you think they're happy, or you've got this idea that would make other people happy, so therefore maybe it would make you happy. But it's very limited. But your creative brain knows that maybe you shouldn't be making $1 million a year. Maybe you should be making nothing and living on a beach in somewhere and teaching people how to dive, Also, and that's certainly what's happened for me and for people I've coached with this, is all sorts of unexpected things come along and you go, wow, I never realized I'd enjoy doing that. Or how did this happen? It's nothing that ever was on a goals list. I interviewed a man on my I have 2 podcasts. One is about the brain, called Using Your Brain for Success. And I interviewed a man there who was a very successful entrepreneur in the 1990s. He's retired now, and he had 1 million customers. He developed the business from scratch, became the largest of its type in the world. He had 1 million customers, 500 staff. He flew around in 2 private jets, giving seminars everywhere. And he said to me, Liam, I could never have put that on a goals list. How did all this stuff happen to me, making an absolute fortune? If I'd used a goals list, that would have just limited me. So if you can get away from this idea that you've got to try and figure stuff out, what you've got to do is get rid of fear so that your creative brain can bring you the stuff that you really want and need and enjoy and will feel truly fulfilled by, rather than worried that you need to make $1 million a year so that you'll be okay. When you really lock into that and start to live like that, life becomes magic. It becomes what every entrepreneur wants, which is just filled with joy and excitement and really enjoying what you're doing and letting go of problems and just saying, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. Because if it's a struggle, it's not meant to be. Now, I'm not talking about putting in effort, but we all know the difference between effort and struggle. Mm-hmm. Effort, we get results and it's fulfilling and enjoyable. Struggle is like, just bashing your head and hoping that one day you'll fix it.
Yeah.
I used to I employed salespeople in one of my businesses. I used to spend all my time working on the people who are no good. I should have been, rather than saying, well, you're not a good salesman, sorry, goodbye.
Yeah.
And just work with really good people. I kept trying to think, no, I've got to get everybody up to a good speed. Now, that's stupid, isn't it?
Yeah.
Logically. But how many people do that? How many people work on the bad parts of their business rather than saying, I'll get rid of that part of my business? Same with their own personal relationships. They work on trying to fix unhealthy relationships rather than saying, if I don't get on with that person, I don't get on with them. It's not the end of the world. We're not supposed to be getting on with each other. That's it. Goodbye.
And do you find that comes based, that comes back to, people having that feeling of fear of going, well, I have to make this work. Like I can't, I don't want to say that I failed at, this relationship or this business or, what are people going to think? And then we get back into our thoughts again of overthinking stuff.
That's right. It's all about our hidden fears, isn't it? That's what unfortunately holds us all back, keeps us in this fearful, anxious state. And most of our fears we don't realize. We don't realize that you'd feel a failure if you gave up, or other people would think you're a failure, or you'd regret it. You'd look back with regret, or you wouldn't know what to do instead, or you might end up with no money and homeless, or or unloved, or whatever. Or you'd never find someone in your marriage. You would never find someone as good, or your children might be. Whatever your fears are, that unfortunately drives your decisions, and you're not allowing your creative brain, which is the infinite intelligence part of your brain. It knows what you want. It knows what's going to make you happy. It knows what is going to make you the best that you can be. It's its job to know what's going to make you the best that you can be. In other words, your happiest, and it's its job to bring you that. And I don't know about you, I'd rather use an infinite computer the right way than try and figure stuff out myself.
Yeah. And, a lot of what you're saying, is really making sense to me, because I even think too, like when I had my retail store and I decided that I was just done and I wanted to close it. And I remember a lot of people, coming and saying like, why are you doing it? Like, it's working for you. It's successful. Like, why would you do this? And I remember I didn't really ever have an answer. And I remember saying to them, I don't know. I just feel like it's time to let it go. Like, but what are you going to do? I don't know. Like, but it was at a point in my life where, when I look back on it, I think that was me releasing all of the fear and just going, no, I don't know what's happened. No, I don't have a goal. No, I don't have something else. And I'm okay with that. Like, I'm finally okay with let's just see what the world brings me. And as you were talking, I was sort of realizing that was me sort of letting that go. And what came after was being able to do my podcast and coaching and doing stuff that I really, really love. And I enjoy waking up every day. So for me, I kind of go, man, letting go of that fear was as easy as me just going, I don't know, like, and being okay with not knowing. Because for me, that control was always a big thing. I needed to know what was my next step. What was I going to, what was going to happen? But I was almost just like, I don't know, we'll see what tomorrow brings. Like,
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a perfect example, isn't it? And here's the thing. You not only don't need to know what's going to happen, you can't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going to happen 5 minutes from now, let alone tomorrow. You look at economic forecasters and and people who predict the future, they all get it wrong all the time. Why do we spend so much time trying to figure out what's going to happen in the future? Because all of that, our limited thinking brain doesn't know. But we have an infinite part of our brain, the creative brain, that does know what's going to happen. Well, it doesn't know necessarily everything that's going to happen, but it knows that it has the resources to bring to you everything you need for you to be the best that you can be. That's what it's designed to do. So we have to, but it's fear that stops us. And the one thing we're afraid of is totally illogical, is the future, because none of us know what's going to happen. And we try and control it with setting goals and, hanging on to things rather than letting them go, as you say, with your retail business. But it's just not how your brain works. And the more you understand how this machine works, it's a little bit like, with your car. If you get into a car and you say, I'm going to go from point A to point B, you don't have to try and figure out how to get there. You just know you put your foot down and it'll take you there. You're not measuring every, 5 yards or meters or whatever to figure out, is this working, or should it, there's another part. You don't need to think about it. There's a part that takes control. So that's the part of you that does the work. It's not your thinking brain. It knows how to get you where you go. It's going to bring the right people to you. It's going to bring the right situations. So
yeah, that's true. Like those moments where you're driving home, and you're kind of like, how did I get here? I don't remember this whole path. Like, but you kind of, like you said, you go almost into an autopilot, because I've done that numerous times.
That's exactly what it is.
That's kind of scary. That, like, I don't remember this drive. I shouldn't say that. Well, there's going to be a lot of people in my town that are like, that woman's driving around not knowing where she's going.
But it's a different way to live, because instead of trying to figure it all out, plan it all out, you just take it a step at a time. You don't need to think, you just go, what feels right now? I mean, like you, I had a business for a few years that it was doing okay. And my partner said, we should sell it. And I said, no, it's all right. And it doesn't feel like the right time to sell it. And one day, about 2 years ago, I just woke up at 5 in the morning and I said to her, time to sell the business. And we found someone to sell it for us. Within 2 days, we had 7 offers. The person who bought it paid 25% more than the asking price and settled in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Because it's all you need to do is just take the next step. Just say, what feels right to do now? And just realize that that's all that your conscious thinking brain, that part of your brain, that's all it can cope with, is the next step. It's all it's designed to cope with. It's not designed to know the next 20 steps. Now, sometimes, of course, you need to have a bit of a plan, and that's the step, isn't it? Is to figure out, right, I've decided this is what I'm doing. Like, I'm going to buy this house. Well, what do I need to do? Well, I need to call the bank and do my finances and check on the whatever about the property, and you need to insurance and all that. You need to do certain things as part of a plan, and you might write all that down into a bit of a plan and so a checklist. So I'm not saying planning doesn't have a role, but most of the time we're trying to plan something that we shouldn't be planning, that we don't know how to figure it. So instead of trying to figure it out, just take the next step and see where it takes you.
Right.
And you'll be amazed what happens I'm not saying you, one, will be, we'll all be amazed at what shows up if you just trust and allow that part of your brain to do its job, really. Because that part of your brain's going all the time, would you just get out of my way, please?
Yeah.
That's what it's trying to do. It's just trying to get you out of the way, get your thoughts out of the way. And you go, well, things show up.
And I think we get, when we create those plans, I know for myself that sometimes I get so stuck in that's the way it has to go. Like I've made these steps. This is the chronological order that it has to go. And so when it doesn't happen, as opposed to just going, okay, well, let's shift and do something else, that sometimes we can get stuck and be like, no, like now it's off the rails. Like, oh my gosh, like now what am I going to do? As opposed to just going, well, let's just reassess. Like, it's like driving a car. If you just drive, there'll be a road. And if there's a dead end, turn around.
Yeah.
Like, it's not.
And if the car knew how to get you to where you want to go better than you did, if it had an onboard computer, why would you try and get a map out every 3 yards and figure out where you were and how to go? You just, as you say, there's the road, there's the sign to where you want to go, you just follow the road.
Yeah there's wow, there's so much in that, even for myself, that I think there's a lot for people to unpack. Talk to us a little bit about some of the stuff that you offer, because I think there's like I said, there's a lot to unpack, but there's a lot that you offer that will help people sort of take this new journey easier.
Sure. Well, I have a couple of podcasts. One is about marriage and relationships called Growing in Love for Life. And that's all about all sorts of different aspects on, problems that people face in their marriage and effective ways to solve those problems.
Yes, you had a really good episode just recently I listened to of about attraction to each other again. It was, I'll make sure that I link to it in our show notes, but that was a good one. I listened to that one last night. It was really, really interesting.
Great. Well, the gist of that, I'm sure you agree, just to digress slightly, is people say, to get, if our marriage is not enough attraction, what do we need to do? We need to figure out all these techniques and, ways to build up our attraction. All you need to do is to be somebody who's attractive. That's it. So you need to figure out, how can I be more attractive to that person? And the way to be more attractive is to be more of the real you, which is not someone who's got fear. You're not, when you're attractive, you're a fun person to be around. You're not worried about what the other person thinks. So anyway, yes, so that's about marriage and relationships. And my newer podcast, which is sort of developed there, is called Using Your Brain for Success. And I really go into a lot of detail about how your brain works and how you can use it in a much better way. Because when you understand that this is how your brain works, when you really get it, you realize there's no other way to live. It would be mad to get you, when you know how a car works, why would you stand behind it and try and push it along the road without the engine on? But that's what most of us do with life, that we try and push our life along and struggle and put all this effort in, when it's a machine that's actually going to take you there, when you understand it, far more easily. So those are my two podcasts. And I also have coaching programs. I've got several about marriage and relationships. And my newest one is about this whole area of what we've been talking about, really. And I've developed a process called neurostate rebalancing, which I mentioned earlier. And I have a coaching program which goes into great detail about understanding how your brain works and how to use this process called neurostate rebalancing to do the one thing that we've been talking about that you need to do, which is to get rid of your hidden fears. Because everybody says, well, once you understand, yes, I need to get rid of my fear because that's what's blocking my brain from giving me my ideal life. How do I do that?
Right.
I don't even know what I'm afraid of, but how do I do that? Because I still feel stressed and,
Yeah, now I feel fear of letting go of the fear.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a process that will actually enable your brain to, why I've called it rebalancing your neurostate, is it gets those four parts of your brain working properly so that you're using naturally your creative part rather than your fear-based part. So what what people find, and what I've found as well, and as I say, for other people who've used this process, is like you do see new opportunities. You do find more creative ways to solve the problems you've got. You stop creating new problems for yourself, and you finally get into this flow of your life, which is the way you're supposed to be. And life just becomes a lot more exciting, fun, and fulfilling, really, and a lot less stressful. So this is what I coach through this process called neurostate rebalancing in my coaching program, which is called Use Your Brain for Success.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of other stuff you'll find on my website, liamnaden.com. It's all, it's all there.
Yes, because you do have quite a few different, different products and different coaching things. So we're going to make sure that we link to that so everybody could go and check out whether you're looking for marriage and relationships, business and finance, life and success. You kind of have it all there. So, but I
also do personal coaching as well. I'm available for personal coaching sessions for people.
Like one-on-one coaching, you mean?
Yeah, via Zoom.
So, yes, because you're a jet setter yourself.
Yes, well, I live an interesting life. I live the nomadic life. I live on a boat. And if you want to learn how to just take the next step and not worry about what's going to happen, try living on a boat, because you never know what's going to happen. The weather can change. You decide you go somewhere and you don't like it and you want to go somewhere else. So it's a great, it's a great way to learn that lesson of don't plan ahead. Just take the next step and everything will work out fine. And just keep following your heart and saying, what's my gut feeling about this? If I was to remove fear, which is difficult to do if you feel fear, because often you're just trying to get out of a situation and you make the wrong decision. And that's the biggest problem. People say, yes, but if I just earn more money, it'll solve so many problems, and then I'll feel good, and then I can, work on this other stuff.
Yeah.
But we spend our life doing that, just because we're chasing feeling good rather than realizing that if you don't feel fear and anxiety, your brain is going to bring feeling good to you. That's the way you're supposed to be. It's your natural state. There's nothing else in nature that gets stressed, and you're not supposed to get stressed either.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's something that we all, definitely want to strive for. And I think in the back of our head, I think that's why most people became entrepreneurs, is because initially they have that thought of, get to pick their own hours that they can work, not having to do the stress, not having to answer to somebody. Like, that's the common thing that you hear. And somehow that's the first thing that they give up when they go in that path. Right. So it's very interesting. I think it's all really interesting stuff to discover. So we'll definitely make sure that we link to your website and your 2 podcasts as well. I really enjoyed How to Achieve Your Goals 100% of the Time Guaranteed, which was episode 14. I'm going to link to that one in particular because it was very interesting, and I want people to listen to it, because I don't want to give it away. I want them to actually go and listen to it, because it really made me go, that's interesting. That's an interesting way to think of it. So thank you so much. Go ahead.
The beautiful part is when you start using your brain the right way, your perspective changes, your awareness shifts, and you start to see things not only in a different way, but you start to see the truth about what actually is going on. And one of the things I'm proud of about my podcasts and my programs is that a lot of what I say, people go, that makes total sense. I'd never thought of it like that, but yes, it's true. And what you're saying with that about how to achieve your goals, without giving it away. So that's what will happen to you, or to one, or to anybody when they start using their brain the right way. Your perspective will shift, and you'll start to see things in a much clearer, better, more empowering empowering way, in a way that's better for you. It gives you a much better life, and that's the life you're supposed to have. It's not supposed to be struggle and problems.
Yeah. And I think that's a great message for anybody who's out there who feels like they're just trudging along, and that this is their, when they kind of get to that point of, they go, well, maybe this is just my lot. This is my lot in life. That's not true.
No. You're designed to be someone unique, doing amazing things, but you need to get rid of your fear and trying to figure out what it is you're supposed to be doing, and just allow that to show up.
Yeah, get out of
let
your own
brain
way,
bring
like you
it to you.
said.
Totally. Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And I think you definitely left us with a lot to, sort of sit down, and it's funny because we were talking about overthinking, but to really sit down and think and go, am I causing a lot of this stress and fear and stuff in my life? And really sort of take that next step to, if anything you take it away is, I think the biggest thing is that your brain is so intricate, and it's time that we start really learning how to use it, as opposed to thinking that we can just think our way out of it.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything else in life worth doing more than figuring out how to use your brain the right way? I mean, that's going to give you everything.
Yeah.
Why would you try and do it the hard way when all you need to do is learn how to use what you've got?
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you again. We'll make sure that we link, like I said, to both of your podcasts, as well as on your website, where everybody can find more out and take their next step to an easier, more fulfilling life.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you again to Liam for coming on the show and giving us a lot to really think about. Not only the different ways that you use your brain, but how we think of fear and how we are, just going about our days. So I would love to hear what your biggest takeaway was. So head over to our social media, look for this post, and let me know, what was the thing that you took away? I really love hearing from you. You can also head to our website at foxtalksbusiness.ca. Click on blogs on the left-hand side of the page. You're going to see a little bit more about Liam, as well as all of the ways that you can connect with him. And I'm also going to have the links to the 2 episodes that I, thought were really, really interesting. They were the last 2 that I listened to, and I think you'll get a lot out of them. So one is about how to be more attractive, and the other one is how to achieve your goals 100% of the time. So those links will be on our website for you to check out. And as always, no matter what it is that you're doing today, make sure that you take time to have fun. Because as I always say, if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?